A powerful businessman sees his world collapse when a phone call reveals that his son is unconscious in the streets. Upon arriving at the scene, he finds the fragile boy and an unknown girl who, with courage, did not abandon him. Amid sirens, hospitals, and painful discoveries, an unexpected bond is born between the man and the girl. Chapter 1. The Call That Changed Everything. Manhattan's skyline glittered like a crown of steel and glass against the autumn sky as Robert Blackwell stood at his office window. 50 stories above the bustling streets, the CEO of Blackwell Enterprises surveyed the empire he had built from nothing. At 45, his salt and pepper hair and tailored suits had become as much a part of his brand as his ruthless business acumen. The Wall Street Journal had once called him the man with the Midas touch, a title he wore with quiet pride. "Mr. Blackwell, the board is waiting," his executive assistant, Vincent Porter, announced from the doorway, his voice crisp and efficient. Robert nodded without turning. The acquisition of their rival tech company was nearly complete. Another victory in a long string of conquests. "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes." As Vincent's footsteps faded down the hallway, Robert allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The corner office, the Manhattan penthouse, the summer home in the Hamptons, all testaments to his success. But success had come at a price. His marriage hadn't survived his ambition, ending in a civil but hollow divorce 3 years earlier. Now his only connection to that life was his 10-year-old son, Parker. The thought of Parker brought a smile to Robert's face. Despite the custody arrangement that limited their time together, Robert treasured their weekends. This weekend he'd promised to take Parker to the Natural History Museum. The boy's current obsession was paleontology. Robert's phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number. He almost declined it, but something, intuition perhaps, made him answer. "Hello? Mr. Blackwell?" The voice was small, trembling, unmistakably a child's. "Yes, this is Robert Blackwell," he replied, his professional tone automatic. "Your son. He's hurt. He fell. He's not waking up. We're on Lexington and 82nd. Please come." The world tilted. Robert's breath caught in his throat. "Who is this?" "How do you know my son? I saw him fall." "Please hurry." Robert didn't remember dropping the phone. He didn't remember bursting into the boardroom, saying something about an emergency. He didn't remember the elevator ride or how he got a taxi. The only clear thought in his mind was Parker, his son, hurt somewhere in the city. The taxi crawled through midtown traffic while Robert called Parker's school. Yes, they confirmed, Parker had left at the normal dismissal time. No, they weren't aware of any incident. Robert's hand shook as he tried to call his ex-wife, but she was on a business trip in London. "Can't you go any faster?" Robert urged the driver, his voice breaking with desperation. "Doing my best, sir." Traffic's bad around the park. Robert threw cash at the driver and got out, running the last several blocks, his custom Italian shoes slapped against the pavement, his cashmere coat flapping behind him. The man who calculated every move, who never lost control, was now racing through Manhattan streets, tie loosened, gasping for air. He spotted them from half a block away. A small crowd gathered around something on the sidewalk. Robert pushed through, his heart pounding in his ears. Parker lay motionless on the concrete, his school backpack still strapped to his shoulders, his face pale against the pavement. Beside him knelt a girl, no more than 9 or 10 years old, with tangled auburn hair and clothes that hung too loose on her small frame. She looked up at Robert with wide, frightened eyes. "Are you his dad?" Robert fell to his knees beside his son. "Parker, Parker, can you hear me?" His voice cracked as he gently touched his son's face. Parker's breathing was shallow, a bruise forming on his temple. "Has anyone called an ambulance?" "I did," the girl said, her voice steadier than it had been on the phone. "After I called you. They said they're coming." Robert gathered Parker's limp hand in his own. "What happened?" "Did you see?" The girl nodded, wiping a tear with her sleeve. He was walking and looking at his phone. He stepped into the street when the light was changing. A bicycle almost hit him and he jumped back and fell. He hit his head on the fire hydrant. She pointed to the hydrant behind them. He said ow, and then he just closed his eyes. The wall of control that Robert had built around himself for years crumbled completely. The mighty CEO was just a terrified father now, holding his son's hand, willing him to open his eyes. "I found his phone," the girl continued, holding out Parker's cracked smartphone. "I saw the contact that said Dad and I called you." Robert looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. Despite her unkempt appearance, there was something resolute in her posture, a kind of quiet courage. "What's your name?" "Lily," she said. "Lily Wilson." The ambulance arrived, sirens wailing. Paramedics swarmed around them, asking questions, checking vitals, carefully transferring Parker to a stretcher. Robert answered mechanically. "Yes, he's my son. No known allergies. 10 years old. I don't know how long he's been unconscious." As they prepared to load Parker into the ambulance, Robert turned to thank the girl, but she had stepped back, blending into the crowd of onlookers. "Wait," Robert called. "Lily!" She hesitated, then stepped forward. "Thank you," Robert said, "for staying with him, for calling me." Lily shrugged, looking down at her worn sneakers. "I couldn't just leave him there." "Sir, we need to go now," a paramedic interrupted. "Can she come with us?" Robert asked, surprising himself. "She saw what happened." The paramedic nodded, and Robert extended his hand to Lily. After a moment's hesitation, she took it and climbed into the ambulance after him. Inside the vehicle, lights flashing as they sped through traffic, Robert held Parker's hand while the paramedics worked. Lily sat quietly in the corner, her small face solemn as she watched. "Parker, it's Dad," Robert whispered, leaning close to his son's ear. "I'm here. You're going to be okay." His voice broke on the last word, the uncertainty of his promise hanging heavy in the sterile air of the ambulance. Lily spoke up suddenly. "I think he can hear you." Robert glanced at her. "What makes you say that?" "His fingers moved when you talked." "Just a little." Robert turned back to Parker, hope flaring in his chest. "Parker, squeeze my hand if you can hear me." He waited, seconds stretching into eternity, until he felt it, the faintest pressure against his palm. A tear slid down his cheek. "That's it, buddy. I'm right here." When they arrived at New York Presbyterian Hospital, Parker was rushed through sliding doors, a flurry of medical staff surrounding him. Robert followed as far as they would allow him, then found himself stopped at a set of double doors. "You can wait here, Mr. Blackwell," a nurse told him, gesturing to a nearby waiting area. "The doctor will come speak with you as soon as they've evaluated your son." Robert stood frozen, watching through the small windows as they wheeled Parker away. The corridor lights reflected off his son's pale face, making him look even more vulnerable. "Is he going to be okay?" Robert startled. Lily was still there, standing beside him, her thin arms wrapped around herself. "I hope so," he said, his voice raw. He looked down at her, suddenly wondering about her circumstances. "Lily, should we call someone for you? Your parents must be worried." A shadow passed across her face. "I live with my aunt. She won't be worried." There was something in her tone that raised Robert's concern, but before he could ask more questions, his phone rang. It was Vincent. "Mr. Blackwell, the board is asking for an update. The Klein representatives are getting impatient. The Klein deal, the merger, the billion-dollar acquisition. None of it seemed to matter now." "Cancel everything," Robert said flatly. "Family emergency. Sir, with all due respect, this deal can wait," Robert finished. "My son is in the emergency room, Vincent. Cancel my meetings for the rest of the week." There was a pause, then Vincent's voice softened slightly. "I understand, sir. I'll take care of it. Is there anything else you need?" Robert looked at Lily, who was now sitting in a chair in the waiting area, her legs swinging above the floor. "Not right now. I'll call you later." As he hung up, Robert took a deep breath and moved to sit beside Lily. The waiting room was oddly quiet, muffled announcements occasionally breaking the silence. Robert Blackwell, the man who had built an empire by controlling every variable, by anticipating every outcome, now found himself completely helpless, waiting for news about the one thing that truly mattered. "I'm scared," Lily whispered, so quietly he almost didn't hear her. Robert surprised himself by reaching out and taking her small hand in his. "Me too," he admitted. "But we're going to be brave together, okay?" Lily nodded, her eyes wide. And in that moment, something shifted in Robert's world, a realization that all the power and wealth he'd accumulated meant nothing compared to the fragile hand he held in his, and the even more fragile one he hoped would soon grasp his again. Chapter 2, Waiting Room Revelations. Hours crawled by in the hospital waiting room. Robert had made calls to his ex-wife Catherine, who was booking the first flight back from London, to his lawyer, who promised to handle any issues that arose with the company, to Parker's pediatrician, who assured him she would consult with the emergency team. Through it all, Lily remained. Nurses had brought her apple juice and crackers, which she accepted with shy thanks but barely touched. As the evening deepened, Robert noticed her yawning, but making a visible effort to stay alert. "You should call your aunt," Robert suggested gently. "Let her know where you are." Lily tensed, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her faded sweater. She won't answer anyway. Something in her tone made Robert study her more carefully. Her clothes were clean but worn thin, her sneakers scuffed beyond repair. Though it was October and the evening air had turned chilly, she wore no coat. "Lily," he said carefully, "does your aunt know you're out this late?" She shrugged, not meeting his eyes. "She works nights sometimes. Other times she has friends over. It's better if I'm not around then." Robert felt a knot forming in his stomach. "How old are you, Lily?" 9.5. Before he could ask more questions, a doctor in blue scrubs approached them. "Mr. Blackwell?" Robert stood immediately. "Yes, that's me. How is my son?" "I'm Dr. Rivera." She had kind eyes that contrasted with her serious expression. "Your son has a concussion, but the CT scan shows no bleeding or fracture, which is good news. He's regained consciousness, but he's groggy and confused, which is normal. We'd like to keep him overnight for observation." Relief washed over Robert like a wave. "Can I see him?" "Of course." "He's asking for you." Dr. Rivera glanced at Lily. "Is this your daughter?" "No, she's—" Robert paused, unsure how to explain. "She helped Parker. She called me." Dr. Rivera smiled at Lily. "That was very brave of you." Lily ducked her head, embarrassed by the praise. "Can she come too?" Robert asked. "Just for a minute. I think Parker would want to thank her." After a moment's consideration, Dr. Rivera nodded, just briefly. "He needs rest." They followed her through a maze of corridors to a room where Parker lay in a bed that seemed too large for his small frame. His face was pale, a bandage on his temple, but his eyes, Robert's eyes, lit up when he saw his father. "Dad," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Robert was at his side in an instant, carefully embracing his son. "Hey, buddy, you gave me quite a scare." Parker's eyes moved to Lily, who hovered uncertainly in the doorway. "Who's that?" "This is Lily," Robert said, gesturing for her to come closer. "She found you after you fell and called me. She rode in the ambulance with us." Parker studied her with curiosity. "Thank you," he said simply. Lily approached the bed cautiously. "You have a cool dinosaur backpack," she offered. "Is that a velociraptor on it?" Parker's face brightened. "Yeah. Do you like dinosaurs too? They're okay. I like drawing them sometimes." "Parker needs to rest now," Dr. Rivera interjected gently. "You can talk more tomorrow." Robert squeezed his son's hand. "I'll be right outside if you need anything, okay?" Parker nodded, his eyelids already growing heavy. "Don't leave, Dad." "I won't, I promise." Back in the hallway, Dr. Rivera gave Robert instructions about Parker's care and what to expect over the next few days. As they finished their conversation, a social worker approached them. "Mr. Blackwell, I'm Melissa Cooper from Social Services. Could I speak with you for a moment?" Her gaze shifted meaningfully toward Lily, who had settled into a chair outside Parker's room, legs swinging, as she leafed through a magazine from a nearby table. Robert followed Ms. Cooper to a quiet corner of the hallway. "One of our nurses expressed concern about the young girl who came in with you," she explained. "She mentioned the child seems to be without adequate supervision." Robert sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "To be honest, I'm concerned too. She says she lives with her aunt, but from what little she said, I don't think it's a good situation." Ms. Cooper nodded, jotting notes. "Does she have a history with your family?" "No, we just met today when she helped my son. But I can't just send her back to an empty apartment or a neglectful guardian. I understand your concern, Mr. Blackwell, but there are protocols we need to follow. I can contact Child Protective Services." "And then what?" Robert interrupted. "She'll be put into the system tonight? Sent to a shelter or emergency foster care?" The social worker's expression softened. "Unfortunately, that might be necessary while her situation is investigated." Robert glanced back at Lily, who was now drawing on a notepad a nurse had given her. Something about her, Her quiet dignity, her bravery in helping a stranger, stirred something protective in him. "What if she stays with me tonight?" he suggested suddenly. "I'll be here with Parker anyway. Tomorrow we can figure out a more permanent solution." Miss Cooper looked skeptical. "Mr. Blackwell, I appreciate your concern, but you're not a relative or an approved foster parent." "I understand that. But look at her. She's exhausted, probably hungry, and she's been through a traumatic event. Wouldn't it be better for her to stay in a familiar environment tonight? I can bring her back tomorrow to meet with CPS." After some discussion and calls to supervisors, Ms. Cooper reluctantly agreed to the temporary arrangement, provided Robert signed some paperwork and promised to bring Lily to the CPS office the following afternoon. When Robert returned to where Lily was sitting, he found her drawing intently, a surprisingly detailed sketch of a boy running through what looked like a garden, smiling. "Is that Parker?" he asked, sitting beside her. Lily nodded, adding details to the trees in her drawing. "It's what I hope he'll be doing soon, running and smiling instead of lying in a hospital." Robert felt his throat tighten with emotion. That's a beautiful thought, Lily, and a beautiful drawing." She shrugged, but he could see a small smile tugging at her lips. "Listen, Lily, it's getting late and I'm going to stay here with Parker tonight. The hospital staff is concerned about you going home alone, and frankly, so am I." Lily's shoulders tensed. "I'm not supposed to talk to CPS. Aunt Patricia says they'll take me away and put me somewhere worse." Robert chose his words carefully. "You won't be going anywhere tonight. You can stay here with me if you'd like. There's a cot in Parker's room for family. Tomorrow we can figure things out together." She studied his face as if searching for a trick or a lie. "Why are you being nice to me?" "You don't even know me." The question caught Robert off guard with its directness. "Because you helped my son when he needed someone. And because I think maybe you could use some help too." Lily considered this for a long moment. "Okay," she finally said, "but I should tell my aunt so she doesn't report me missing." Of course, Robert agreed, though he doubted from what Lily had said that her aunt would even notice her absence. Lily pulled out an old flip phone from her pocket and dialed. After several rings, a woman answered, her voice loud enough that Robert could hear the irritation in it. "What?" the woman snapped. "It's Lily. I'm going to stay with a friend tonight." "Whatever. Don't bother me at work. I need this shift." The call ended as abruptly as it had begun. Lily pocketed the phone, her expression carefully blank. "All set," she said with forced cheerfulness that broke Robert's heart. They returned to Parker's room, where a nurse had set up a cot and brought extra blankets. Parker was sleeping peacefully, the monitors beeping steadily beside him. Robert helped Lily get settled on the cot, and she fell asleep almost instantly, curled up beneath the hospital blankets. Robert sat in the chair between the two sleeping children, his mind racing. In less than 12 hours, his world had been turned upside down. His son had nearly been seriously injured. His company was in the middle of its biggest acquisition ever, now threatened by his absence. And he had somehow become temporarily responsible for a child he'd never met before today, a child who clearly needed help. His phone vibrated with messages from Vincent. "The board is concerned. The Klein representatives are threatening to walk away. The press is asking questions about your sudden disappearance." Robert silenced the phone and set it aside. For the first time in his adult life, business would have to wait. Looking at Parker's peaceful face, then at Lily's small form huddled under the blankets, he knew with absolute certainty that he was exactly where he needed to be. As the night deepened, nurses came and went, checking Parker's vitals, adjusting IVs. Robert dozed occasionally in the uncomfortable chair, but mostly remained awake, watching over the two children as if he could protect them from harm through sheer vigilance. Around 3 in the morning, Lily stirred, whimpering in her sleep. Robert gently touched her shoulder, and she woke with a start, eyes wide with momentary panic. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe. It was just a dream." She blinked at him, reality slowly replacing whatever had frightened her. "Sorry," she mumbled. "Nothing to be sorry for. Go back to sleep." Instead, she sat up, hugging her knees to her chest. "I dream about my mom sometimes," she said quietly. "She died when I was 5. That's when I went to live with Aunt Patricia." The simple statement, delivered without self-pity, cut through Robert's heart. "I'm sorry, Lily, that must be very hard." She shrugged in that way children do when trying to seem tougher than they feel. "It's okay. I remember some good things about her. She used to sing to me, and she always said I was special, even when I messed up." Robert thought of his own mother who had passed away when he was in college. Even as an adult, the loss had devastated him. He couldn't imagine facing such grief as a young child. "Your mother was right," he said softly. "You are special. What you did for Parker today proves that." Lily's eyes shone in the dim light of the hospital room. "Do you think he'll be okay?" Robert looked at his sleeping son. "Yes, I do. Thanks to you." She smiled then, a real smile that transformed her solemn little face. "Good." She lay back down, pulling the blanket up to her chin. "Good night, Mr. Blackwell." "Good night." "Lily, sweet dreams." As she drifted back to sleep, Robert found himself making a silent promise, not just to Parker, but to this brave, resilient little girl who had entered their lives so unexpectedly. He didn't know yet what form that promise would take, but he knew with certainty that he couldn't simply walk away from her once this crisis had passed. Chapter 3. New Beginnings. Morning arrived with the rhythmic bustle of a hospital shift change. Robert awoke stiff-necked from his night in the chair to find Parker already awake, quietly watching cartoons on the room's small television. On the cot, Lily was still asleep, one hand tucked beneath her cheek. "Hey, buddy," Robert whispered, moving to his son's bedside. "How are you feeling?" "My head hurts," Parker admitted, his voice stronger than it had been the night before. "But not as bad as yesterday." "Who's that girl again?" "Her name is Lily. She helped you when you fell." Parker's brow furrowed as he tried to piece together fragments of memory. "I don't remember falling. I remember looking at that dinosaur video you sent me and then nothing until I was in the ambulance." "That's normal with concussions," Robert assured him, smoothing Parker's dark hair away from the bandage. "Your memories might be a bit jumbled for a while." Dr. Rivera arrived soon after, checking Parker's pupils and asking him questions to assess his cognitive function. "So you're doing well," she told him with a smile. "If you continue to improve, you might be able to go home this afternoon." "Really?" Parker brightened, then winced at the sudden movement. "Easy there," the doctor cautioned. "You'll need to take it very easy for at least a week. No screens, no physical activity, just rest." Parker groaned dramatically, making both Robert and Dr. Rivera laugh. The sound woke Lily, who sat up, momentarily disoriented before remembering where she was. "Good morning," Robert said, turning to her. "Did you sleep okay?" Lily nodded, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Her auburn hair was a tangle of curls around her face. "Are you hungry? I can get us all some breakfast." "Hospital food is gross," Parker declared with the authority of a child who had recently had his tonsils removed. Dr. Rivera chuckled. "The cafeteria actually makes decent pancakes, and there's a cafe in the lobby with good pastries." After the doctor left, Robert helped Parker to the bathroom, then settled him back in bed. "I'll go get us some food. Will you two be okay for a few minutes?" Both children nodded, and Robert stepped out grateful for a moment to collect his thoughts. In the hallway, he checked his phone to find several missed calls from Catherine, his ex-wife. He called her back immediately. "Robert, finally! I just landed at JFK. How's Parker?" Catherine's voice was taut with worry. "He's doing much better this morning," Robert assured her. "The doctor thinks he might be released today. They're keeping him for observation because of the concussion, but there's no bleeding or fracture." He heard her relieved exhale. "Thank God. I'm getting a cab now. I'll be there in about an hour, depending on traffic." "Catherine," Robert hesitated, unsure how to explain about Lily. "There's something else you should know." By the time he finished explaining, Catherine was pulling up to the hospital. "So this child has essentially been abandoned by her guardian?" she asked, her lawyer's mind already processing the implications. "Not officially abandoned, but severely neglected, yes. The social worker is coming back this afternoon to take her statement and determine next steps." "Poor thing," Catherine murmured, her maternal instincts overriding her usual practicality. "I'm almost there. We'll figure it out together." When Robert returned to the room with breakfast, he found Parker and Lily deep in conversation. Lily was showing Parker her drawings, and he was asking questions about her technique with genuine interest. "You're really good," Parker was saying. "I can only draw stick figures." Lily shrugged, but Robert could see she was pleased by the compliment. "I practiced a lot. There's not much else to do at my apartment." They ate their breakfast, pancakes for the children, coffee and a bagel for Robert, and soon after, Catherine arrived. Despite their divorce, she and Robert had maintained an amicable relationship for Parker's sake. She hurried to Parker's side, embracing him carefully, her elegant appearance slightly rumpled from the overnight flight. "My brave boy," she murmured, kissing his forehead. "You scared us." Parker tolerated his mother's affection with the typical embarrassment of a 10-year-old boy, but Robert could tell he was glad to see her. After thoroughly checking Parker over herself, Catherine turned to Lily, who had retreated to the cot, watching warily. "And you must be Lily," Catherine said warmly. "I hear you're quite the hero." Lily flushed, looking down. "I just called Mr. Blackwell." "Well, that made all the difference," Catherine said, sitting beside her. "Thank you for helping my son." The morning passed with doctor's visits, paperwork, and preparations for Parker's discharge. Robert stepped out to take a few urgent work calls, delegating responsibilities to Vincent and other executives. When he mentioned that he would be taking the rest of the week off, Vincent's concern was palpable even through the phone. "Sir, the Klein merger." "Can wait," Robert interrupted firmly. "My family can't." Throughout it all, Lily remained quiet, drawing in her notebook or chatting softly with Parker. Around noon, Ms. Cooper returned with a colleague from Child Protective Services, a stern-looking woman named Mrs. Granger. "We need to speak with Lily alone," Mrs. Granger stated, her tone brooking no argument. Robert and Catherine exchanged glances. "Of course," Robert said, though he felt a protective instinct surge within him. "We'll be right outside if you need us." "Lily?" The girl nodded, her expression carefully neutral, but Robert could see fear in her eyes. In the hallway, he and Catherine waited anxiously. "What do you think will happen to her?" Catherine asked quietly. Robert ran a hand through his hair. "Best case, they investigate her aunt and determine if the home is safe. Worst case, she goes into emergency foster care tonight." And if it's the latter, Robert hesitated, an idea forming that he hadn't fully articulated even to himself. "I don't know, but I can't just send her back to that situation, Catherine. You should have heard her aunt on the phone. She didn't even care where Lily was staying." Catherine studied her ex-husband with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You've changed, Robert. What do you mean?" "A year ago, you would have called your assistant to handle this. You would have made a generous donation to a children's charity and considered your duty done." Robert couldn't deny it. Maybe nearly losing Parker put things in perspective. After almost an hour, Mrs. Granger emerged from the room alone. "We've conducted an initial assessment," she told Robert and Catherine. "Based on Lily's statements and our preliminary verification, we have serious concerns about her current living situation. We've attempted to contact her aunt, Patricia Wilson, but she's not answering her phone." "What happens now?" Robert asked. "Normally, we would place her in emergency foster care until a more thorough investigation can be conducted." "Normally?" Catherine picked up on the qualifier. Mrs. Granger sighed. "Lily has expressed strong resistance to being placed in foster care. She's had negative experiences in the past before her aunt took custody." Robert felt his stomach knot. What had this child endured in her short life? Given her age and the trauma of recent events, we're reluctant to force a placement that might cause additional psychological stress. "There must be another option," Catherine said. Mrs. Granger looked at them both carefully. "There is. Lily has indicated that she feels safe with you. Mr. Blackwell, we could arrange a temporary emergency placement in your home, pending home study and background checks, if you're willing to consider it." Robert felt as though the air had been sucked from the room. He looked at Catherine, whose expression was unreadable, then back at Mrs. Granger. "For how long?" "Initially, a 2-week emergency placement. During that time, we would conduct a more thorough investigation of Miss Wilson and determine if reunification is possible or if alternative permanent arrangements need to be considered. And if her aunt is found to be an unsuitable guardian, then the court would determine the next steps. Foster care would be one possibility. Kinship care with another relative, if one can be found, would be another." Robert took a deep breath. "I need to speak with my ex-wife and with Parker. This affects them too. Mrs. Granger nodded. Of course. Ms. Cooper will remain with Lily while you discuss this. We do need a decision today, however. When they entered Parker's room, they found him sitting up in bed looking much better than he had the previous evening. The doctor says I can go home this afternoon, he announced excitedly. Robert sat on the edge of the bed. That's great news, buddy. Listen, your mum and I need to talk to you about something important. As simply as he could, Robert explained Lily's situation and the decision they were facing. So, he concluded, how would you feel if Lily came to stay with us for a little while, just until the social workers figure out what's best for her? Parker considered this seriously. Does she like video games? Robert laughed, tension breaking. I'm not sure, probably. She can have the guest room next to mine, Parker decided, the one with the blue walls. And I can show her my dinosaur collection. Catherine touched Robert's arm. Can we talk privately for a moment? In the hallway, she faced him. Robert, are you sure about this? Taking in a child, even temporarily, is a huge responsibility. I know that. But Catherine, if you could have seen her last night, she's all alone in the world. And she saved Parker. Catherine's expression softened. You really care about her already, don't you? Robert hadn't quite admitted it to himself yet, but hearing Catherine say it aloud made it real. Yes, I do. What about work? Your usual schedule wouldn't allow for childcare. I'll cut back. Delegate more. Work from home when possible. The words came easily, surprising him with how ready he was to make these changes. Catherine studied him for a long moment, then nodded. All right, I support your decision, and I'll help however I can. When they returned to Parker's room, Mrs. Granger was there with Ms. Cooper and Lily, whose face was tear-streaked but hopeful. Lily, Robert said gently, kneeling to be at her eye level. Would you like to come stay at my home for a while? Parker's very excited about the idea. Lily glanced at Parker, who gave her an enthusiastic thumbs up from his bed. Really? She asked, her voice small. Really? We have a guest room that would be all yours. And once Parker's feeling better, I'm sure he'd love to show you around. Lily bit her lip, considering. What about Aunt Patricia? The social workers will talk to her. This would just be temporary until they figure things out. Okay, Lily said finally. But I need to get my stuff. I have important things at the apartment. Of course, we can go there together. The rest of the afternoon passed in a whirlwind of paperwork, doctor's instructions and preparations. Parker was discharged with a list of concussion protocols to follow. Robert signed numerous forms for Lily's temporary placement, promising to bring her to appointments with social workers and to cooperate fully with their investigation. By early evening, they were heading to Robert's Upper East Side penthouse in his black SUV, driven by his regular chauffeur, James. Parker sat in the middle seat, pointing out landmarks to Lily as they drove. Catherine had gone ahead to prepare the guest room and stock the refrigerator with child-friendly foods. As the car pulled up to the elegant building, Lily's eyes widened. You live here, she whispered to Parker. Yep, Parker said casually. Wait till you see inside. Dad has a real T-Rex tooth in his office. Robert watched in the rearview mirror as Lily took in the doorman, the marble lobby, the private elevator. Her small face was a mixture of awe and apprehension. When they reached the penthouse, Catherine greeted them. Having transformed the guest room with fresh linens, a stuffed animal on the pillow, and a small desk where Lily could draw. Welcome, Lily, she said warmly. I hope you'll be comfortable here. That night, after both children were settled in bed, Parker still needing to be woken every few hours as a concussion precaution, Robert and Catherine sat in the living room, glasses of wine in hand. This is just the beginning, Catherine said quietly. You know that, right? Robert gazed out at the twinkling city lights. Yes, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm doing something that really matters. Chapter 4. Resistance. The first week passed in a blur of adjustment. Parker stayed home from school, following his doctor's orders to rest and limit screen time. Lily, who had been withdrawn from her school pending the custody situation, kept him company. Robert worked from his home office, stepping out for video conferences and important calls, but otherwise remaining present for the children. On Wednesday, Robert and Lily had visited her aunt's cramped apartment in Queens to collect her belongings. The place had been empty, but Lily had a key. Robert had been shocked by the conditions. Dishes piled in the sink, empty bottles littering the coffee table, the smell of cigarettes permeating everything. Lily's room had been little more than a closet with a mattress on the floor, but she had carefully arranged her few possessions, some worn books, a collection of colored pencils, and a stack of drawings taped to the wall. Most heartbreaking was a framed photo of a woman with Lily's auburn hair and kind eyes, her mother. "Is this all you want to bring?" Robert had asked as Lily filled a single backpack. "It's all I have," she'd replied matter-of-factly. Now, a week later, the guest room had begun to feel like Lily's space. Catherine had taken her shopping for new clothes and essentials. Parker had insisted on sharing his books and games, and Robert had found himself increasingly drawn to this quiet, resilient child who blossomed a little more each day in their care. "Mr. Blackwell?" Lily appeared in his office doorway, her hair neatly braided by Catherine before she had left for the day. "Parker's asleep again. He said his head was hurting." Robert checked his watch, concerned. "I'll go check on him. And Lily, you can call me Robert if you want. Mr. Blackwell sounds so formal." She nodded, though she looked uncertain about the familiarity. "Okay, Robert." As they walked to Parker's room, his phone rang. Vincent's name flashed on the screen. "I need to take this," Robert told Lily. "Can you wait here a moment?" He stepped into the hallway. "Vincent, what's the situation?" "Sir, I've been holding them off as long as I can, but the Klein representatives are insisting on meeting with you personally. They're threatening to walk away from the deal." Robert sighed. The Klein merger had been his focus for months, a billion-dollar acquisition that would cement Blackwell Enterprises as a leader in sustainable tech. But right now it seemed distant, less urgent than the two children just behind that door. "Schedule a video call for tomorrow morning," he conceded. "But make it clear that I'm still on family leave until next week." "There's something else," Vincent said, his voice unusually hesitant. "Patricia Wilson has been calling the office." Robert tensed. "Lily's aunt." "How did she even get our number?" "Apparently, she saw your name in the temporary guardianship papers and looked up the company. She's demanding to speak with you. She sounds unstable." "What did she say?" "Just that you've stolen her niece. That she's going to go to the press. That you can't buy children just because you're rich." Robert felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "Forward any further calls to our legal team." "And Vincent?" "Not a word of this to the press." After checking on Parker, who was sleeping soundly, his headaches diminishing but still present, Robert found Lily in the kitchen, carefully making herself a sandwich. "Need any help?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "I can do it," she said with quiet determination. "I've been making my own food since I was 6. The simple statement broke Robert's heart. "I'm sure you can, but sometimes it's nice to let someone else help, isn't it?" She considered this, then nodded. "I like it when you cut the crusts off. Aunt Patricia says that's wasteful." "Well, I happen to like the crusts," Robert said, taking the bread from her, "so nothing goes to waste." As they assembled the sandwich together, Robert carefully broached the subject. "Lily, your aunt has been trying to contact me." The knife Lily was using to spread peanut butter stilled. "Is she mad?" She seems upset, yes. She thinks you should be with her, not me." Lily's shoulders hunched forward. "Do I have to go back?" "No, not right now," Robert assured her quickly. "The social workers are still investigating what's best for you. But I wanted you to know that she's been asking about you." "She doesn't really want me," Lily said, her voice small but certain. "She just wants the checks." "Checks?" "From the government. Because she's my guardian. She always says I cost more than I'm worth." Robert swallowed hard, anger rising in his chest at the callousness of this woman toward her own niece. "Well, I think you're worth quite a lot, Lily Wilson." She looked up at him with those solemn eyes that seemed too old for her young face. "Really? Really?" He handed her the perfectly cut sandwich. "Now, how about we eat these and then see if Parker's awake? Maybe we could play a board game." The next morning, after dropping Parker at school, his first day back, though only for half a day, Robert prepared for his video conference with the Klein representatives. He settled Lily with her art supplies in the living room, within earshot of his home office. "I'll just be an hour or so," he promised. "Then we can go pick up Parker." The call began smoothly enough. The Klein executives were initially understanding about Robert's family emergency, but as the discussion progressed, their patience visibly thinned. "We've extended our deadline twice already." "Robert," Marcus Klein said, his German accent thickening with frustration. Our shareholders are getting nervous. We need to know if Blackwell is still committed to this acquisition. We absolutely are, Robert assured him. My team has continued preparations in my absence, and I'll be fully back in the office next week. Perhaps, interjected Vincent, who was joining from the Blackwell offices, we could schedule the signing ceremony for next Friday. That would give us time to finalize the remaining details. Before Robert could respond, the door to his office burst open. Lily stood there, her face pale. Robert, someone's at the door saying she's my Aunt Patricia. She's yelling and the doorman is trying to make her leave, but she won't go. Robert immediately stood. Gentlemen, I have an urgent situation. Vincent will continue the discussion. Ignoring their protests, he ended his part of the call and rushed to the foyer with Lily, who clung to his hand. Through the security monitor, he could see a thin, angry-looking woman arguing with his doorman and a security guard in the lobby. That's her. Lily confirmed, her voice trembling. Robert pressed the intercom. This is Robert Blackwell. Please escort Ms. Wilson out of the building. If she refuses to leave, call the police. You can't keep my niece from me, Patricia's shrill voice came through the speaker. I'm her legal guardian. I'll sue you. I'll go to the press. Ms. Wilson, any legal matters regarding Lily will be handled through Child Protective Services and my attorneys, Robert replied calmly. If you'd like to schedule a proper meeting, you can contact them. You think you can buy her? Buy a family? Patricia's voice was slurred, suggesting she'd been drinking. You rich people think you can take whatever you want. The security guards were firmly guiding her toward the exit. Robert turned off the intercom and knelt beside Lily, who was shaking. It's okay, he assured her. She can't get up here. You're safe. Lily nodded, but tears welled in her eyes. She'll come back. She always does when she's like this. Like what? Drunk or on the pills? That's when she gets mean. Robert pulled her into a gentle hug, which she accepted stiffly at first, then melted into. I won't let her hurt you, Lily, I promise. After the incident, Robert called Mrs. Granger at CPS to report what had happened. She promised to escalate their investigation and scheduled an emergency hearing for the following week to review the temporary guardianship. That evening, after the children were asleep, Vincent arrived at the penthouse, his expression grave. How bad is it? Robert asked, pouring them both a scotch. The Klein deal is still salvageable, but they're wavering. Marcus wants assurances that you'll be fully engaged going forward. Vincent accepted the drink but didn't sit. However, that's not the most pressing concern. He handed Robert a tablet displaying a local news website. The headline made Robert's blood run cold. Tech mogul accused of buying child from struggling family. The article featured quotes from Patricia Wilson, claiming that Robert had used his wealth and influence to take Lily away from her loving home and that CPS was in his pocket. There was a particularly damning paragraph suggesting that Robert was trying to replace his own son after Parker's accident with a more perfect child. This is garbage, Robert said through gritted teeth. Pure slander. Unfortunately, it's getting traction, Vincent replied. The angle of a billionaire using his power to take a child from a working-class family plays well in certain circles. Our PR team is monitoring, but they're advising against any direct response that might escalate the situation. Robert paced the living room, fury building. She neglected Lily, left her alone for days. Didn't even notice when she didn't come home. And now she's painting herself as a loving guardian? People believe what fits their narrative, Vincent said pragmatically. And right now the narrative of the heartless rich man versus the struggling single guardian is compelling. What do you suggest? Vincent hesitated. Professionally speaking, distance yourself from the situation. Return Lily to CPS care until the investigation is complete. Focus on the Klein deal, which is worth billions to the company and our shareholders. And personally speaking? Personally? Vincent's professional mask slipped for a moment. I've never seen you care about anything the way you care about that little girl. Not even the company. But this could get ugly, Robert. Uglier than you're prepared for. Robert looked down the hallway toward the bedrooms where Parker and Lily slept. I can handle ugly, Vincent. What I can't handle is breaking a promise to a child who's had far too many promises broken already. Vincent nodded, finishing his drink. Then we prepare for battle. Legal, PR, everything. I'll have the team ready detailed response strategies by morning." After Vincent left, Robert sat alone in the darkened living room, the city lights twinkling beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. The empire he had built now seemed both vital to protect and strangely unimportant compared to the trust of the small girl sleeping down the hall. His phone rang. Catherine. "I just saw the news," she said without preamble. "That woman is vile." "It's going to get worse before it gets better," Robert warned her. "I know. That's why I'm calling. I've been thinking about this all week, watching you with Lily. You're different with her, Robert. In a good way." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying if you're considering making this arrangement more permanent, and I think you are, then I support you. And I'm willing to testify to that effect if it helps your case." Robert felt a lump in his throat. Despite their divorce, Catherine had always been his most clear-eyed critic and his most loyal supporter when it mattered. "Thank you. That means a lot. Parker adores her already. He called me tonight to ask if Lily could come to his weekend visitation with me too. He doesn't want her to feel left out." Robert smiled, pride in his son warming his chest. "He's a good kid. He takes after his father more than you realize," Catherine said softly. "Good night, Robert." The next morning, Robert was awakened by a small hand shaking his shoulder. He opened his eyes to find Lily standing beside his bed, still in her pajamas, holding his tablet. "Am I going back to Aunt Patricia?" she asked, her voice quavering. On the screen was the news article, which she had clearly found and read. Robert sat up, fully awake now, and patted the edge of the bed. "No. Lily, you're not going back unless that's what you want and unless the court decides it's safe." "I don't want to," she said firmly. "And it's not safe. She gets mad and breaks things. Sometimes she doesn't come home for days." "Then we'll fight to make sure you stay somewhere safe," Robert promised. "Either here with us or with another family who will take good care of you." Lily's chin trembled. "But the article says you just want me because Parker got hurt. That I'm a replacement." "Lily, look at me," Robert said gently. "No one could ever replace Parker. And no one could ever replace you either. You're both unique, special people whom I care about very much. So why do you want me to stay?" The question was so direct, so vulnerable that Robert had to take a moment to find the right words. "Because from the moment I met you, I saw how brave and kind and special you are. Because you've brought something wonderful into our lives. And because I think we could be a family, you, me, and Parker, if that's what you want too." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "But what if Aunt Patricia takes me away?" Robert reached out, and she climbed onto the bed beside him, allowing him to wrap an arm around her shoulders. "Then we'll keep fighting until you're safe. I promise you that, Lily. I won't give up on you." They sat together as the sun rose over Manhattan, casting golden light across the room. Robert knew the challenges ahead, the legal battle, the media scrutiny, the potential business fallout. But in that moment, with Lily's small head resting trustingly against his shoulder, none of it seemed insurmountable. Later that morning, as Robert prepared breakfast, his phone rang with a call from Mrs. Granger. "Mr. Blackwell, there's been a development," she said without preamble. "Patricia Wilson has officially filed to contest the temporary guardianship. She's claiming that you've unduly influenced both Lily and Child Protective Services." Robert closed his eyes, steeling himself. "What does this mean for Lily?" "There will be a formal hearing next Tuesday. The judge will review our investigation and hear testimony from all parties, including Lily if she's comfortable speaking. And until then, the current arrangement stands. Lily remains in your care." Mrs. Granger paused. "Mr. Blackwell, I should warn you. Ms. Wilson has obtained legal representation from someone who specializes in high-profile cases against wealthy individuals. They're likely to paint this as a class issue, a power imbalance." "Let them try," Robert said, watching as Lily and Parker sat at the kitchen island, heads bent together over a drawing they were working on collaboratively. The truth is on our side. Chapter 5. The Breaking Point. The media storm intensified over the next few days. Patricia Wilson had found a lawyer who specialized in sensationalism, Diane Lowell, known for representing underdogs against corporations and wealthy individuals. Lowell wasted no time scheduling press conferences where Patricia tearfully described being bullied by Robert's legal team and cut off from her beloved niece. "What Mr. Blackwell fails to understand," Lowell told the cameras, is that family isn't something you can acquire with a checkbook. Ms. Wilson may not have a penthouse apartment or a fleet of nannies, but she has loved and cared for Lily since the tragic passing of her sister. Robert's PR team advised him to remain silent, to let his attorneys handle the legal aspects while they worked behind the scenes to counter the narrative. But the stories kept coming. Tech billionaires' trophy child and class warfare in custody battle, and can the rich simply take whatever children they want? Through it all, Robert focused on maintaining normalcy for the children. Parker had returned to school full-time, his concussion symptoms mostly resolved. Lily, still in limbo regarding her educational placement, spent mornings with a tutor Robert had hired and afternoons with a child psychologist recommended by CPS to help her process her emotions about the situation. "How are you holding up?" Robert asked her one evening as they sat on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the city in shades of gold and pink. Lily hugged her knees to her chest. "Everyone at Parker's school was talking about me today. When we went to pick him up, I heard them. They said you're trying to buy me." Robert sighed, wishing he could shield her from the ugliness. People often talk about things they don't understand. "What matters is what we know is true." "What is true?" she asked, her eyes searching his face. "That I care about you very much. That I want what's best for you. That you deserve to be safe and happy and loved." She nodded slowly. "I believe you," she said simply, and something in Robert's chest loosened at her trust. Inside, his phone rang. "Vincent again. The Klein board is meeting tomorrow," his assistant reported. "They're voting on whether to continue with the acquisition. Marcus called me directly. They're concerned about the negative publicity and your distraction." Robert pinched the bridge of his nose. "The deal is still sound. Our financials are stronger than ever." "This isn't about financials anymore, sir. It's about confidence in leadership. The board wants you at their headquarters in Boston tomorrow to personally reassure them." "Tomorrow?" Robert glanced through the glass doors to where Lily sat, drawing something in her sketchbook. "Vincent, the custody hearing is Tuesday. I need to prepare." "Sir, with all due respect, this deal represents billions in shareholder value. Years of work. Your attorneys can prepare you for Tuesday when you return." Robert felt torn in a way he never had before. The Klein acquisition had been his vision. Sustainable technology that could transform industries while delivering massive returns to investors who had trusted him. Walking away would be irresponsible to thousands of employees and shareholders. "Book the jet for first thing tomorrow," he finally conceded. "I'll be back tomorrow night." When he told Lily and Parker about his day trip, Parker took it in stride, accustomed to his father's business travel. But Lily grew quiet, withdrawn. "I'll only be gone for the day," Robert assured her. "Catherine is coming to stay with you both, and I'll call to say goodnight." Lily nodded but didn't look at him. Later, as he checked on her before bed, he found her staring at the ceiling. "What's on your mind?" he asked, sitting on the edge of her bed. "When adults say they'll come back, sometimes they don't," she said flatly. Robert's heart ached at the implication. "I promise you, Lily, I will always come back." She finally turned to look at him, her eyes too wise for her years. "My mum promised that too." Unable to offer platitudes in the face of such raw truth, Robert simply took her hand. "I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen, Lily, but I can promise that while I have any choice in the matter, I will always come back to you and Parker." The next morning, he left for Boston with a heavy heart. The meeting with the Klein board was tense but productive. Robert was at his persuasive best, assuring them that the custody matter would be resolved quickly and that it wouldn't affect the integration of their companies. "Family matters are personal," he told them. "But business continues. My team hasn't missed a beat and neither will I." By late afternoon, they had reached an agreement. The deal would proceed, with the signing scheduled for the following week. As Robert prepared to leave for the airport, Vincent pulled him aside. "Sir, there's been a development with the Wilson situation." Robert's stomach dropped. "What happened?" Patricia Wilson gave another interview. She claimed that Lily had been manipulated into making false statements about her care. She produced Lily's school records showing good attendance and testimony from neighbors, saying she's a dedicated guardian. That's ridiculous. The CPS investigation is being questioned due to the speed with which they place Lily with you. Ms. Lowell is suggesting preferential treatment. Robert clenched his jaw. "What else?" Vincent hesitated. "She's demanding a supervised visit with Lily. Today." Judge Harmon granted it given Ms. Wilson's status as legal guardian. CPS will supervise, but when? 5 o'clock. At a neutral location downtown. Robert checked his watch. Nearly 4. Even if he left immediately with traffic and airport delays, he wouldn't make it back in time. Call Catherine. Tell her I'm on my way, but she needs to take Lily to the meeting. And get Emily from legal to meet them there. On the jet back to New York, Robert paced the cabin, calling Catherine, his lawyers, Mrs. Granger, anyone who could give him updates. The visit was scheduled for 1 hour at a family services center in Midtown. I don't want to see her, Lily had told Catherine, according to their last phone call. She'll be mad at me. The judge has ordered it, sweetheart, Catherine had explained gently, but I'll be right outside the whole time, and Mrs. Granger will be in the room with you. Landing at Teterboro, Robert rushed to his waiting car. Midtown, fast as you can, he instructed James. The Family Services Center was housed in a nondescript government building. Robert rushed past security, flashing ID, and found Catherine in a waiting area, her face tight with concern. Where's Lily? He demanded. Still in the visitation room. It's been almost an hour. Catherine stood, relief evident at his arrival. Robert, it's not going well. We could hear Patricia yelling before they closed the door. Mrs. Granger had to intervene twice. Robert moved toward the hallway, but a security officer blocked his path. Sir, this is a supervised visitation. Only authorized persons are permitted. I'm Lily's emergency guardian, Robert argued. I'm sorry, sir. I have specific instructions. The argument was cut short by the sound of a door opening down the hallway. Mrs. Granger emerged, her face grim, followed by a sobbing Lily who ran immediately to Catherine. What happened? Robert demanded, moving to them. Ms. Wilson became verbally abusive, Mrs. Granger said in a low voice. She accused Lily of lying, of betraying her, of choosing money over family. When Lily tried to explain her feelings, Ms. Wilson suggested she was being coached and manipulated. Robert knelt beside Lily, who was clinging to Catherine. Lily, are you okay? The girl looked up, her face tear-streaked, and when she saw Robert, she lunged toward him, wrapping her arms around his neck. You came back? She whispered, her voice breaking. Of course I did, he said, holding her close. I promised, didn't I? Over her shoulder, he saw Patricia Wilson emerge from the visitation room, her eyes blazing when she spotted him. You! She snarled, lunging forward only to be restrained by her attorney. You think you can steal my niece? Turn her against me? I'm her blood. Ms. Wilson, this isn't helping your case, Diane Lowell hissed, trying to guide her client toward the exit. I don't care. He's poisoned her against me. Lily, tell them. Tell them how good I've been to you. Lily trembled against Robert but didn't turn around. That's enough, Ms. Wilson, Mrs. Granger said firmly. This visit is concluded. Your behavior will be reported to Judge Harmon. As Patricia was led away, still shouting accusations, Robert lifted Lily into his arms, her small frame surprisingly light. Let's go home, he murmured. Back at the penthouse, Parker was waiting anxiously with his after-school sitter. When he saw Lily's tear-stained face, he immediately offered to show her his new dinosaur book to cheer her up. The simple kindness seemed to help, and the two children retreated to Parker's room, leaving the adults to talk. It was worse than I'm saying in front of Lily, Catherine told Robert quietly. That woman threatened her. Said if Lily didn't come home with her now, she'd make her sorry later. Mrs. Granger had to physically intervene. Robert's blood boiled. She threatened a child? Her own niece? She's unstable, Robert. Possibly dangerous. Mrs. Granger is filing an emergency petition to revoke Patricia's visitation privileges until the hearing. After Catherine left, Robert checked on the children. They had fallen asleep on Parker's bed, surrounded by books, Lily's hand clutching Parker's sleeve as if for security. Even in sleep, Robert carefully carried Lily to her own room, tucking her in without waking her. In his office, he found Vincent waiting with a stack of documents. The Klein contracts for your review, his assistant said, and the latest press coverage of the Wilson situation. It's mixed. Some outlets were beginning to question Patricia's story, particularly after her public outburst. Photos of her being restrained at the Family Services Center had made the evening news, and her apparent intoxication hadn't played well. On camera. What's our next move? Vincent asked. Robert leaned back in his chair, exhausted. We stick to the plan. The Klein signing is set for Wednesday. The custody hearing is Tuesday. We prepare for both. And if they conflict? If the hearing runs long, then Klein waits, Robert said firmly. I won't abandon Lily again. Vincent studied him with an unreadable expression. Oh, you've changed, sir. So I've been told. I'm not sure it's for the better, Vincent added quietly. The Robert Blackwell I've worked with for 15 years would never put a child he barely knows above the company he built from nothing. Robert met his assistant's gaze steadily. Perhaps that Robert Blackwell needed to change. Vincent placed the contracts on the desk. Perhaps you're allowing emotion to cloud your judgment at a critical time. The board is watching, sir, closely. After Vincent left, Robert sat alone in his office, the weight of competing responsibilities heavy on his shoulders. He thought of his own father, a distant, work-obsessed man who had measured love in achievements and milestones rather than moments and connections. Was he risking becoming that same figure to Parker by dividing his attention? Or was he finally breaking the cycle by showing his son that people mattered more than profits? His thoughts were interrupted by a small sound from the doorway. Lily stood there in her pajamas, hair tousled from sleep. I had a bad dream, she said softly. Robert opened his arms and she came to him, climbing onto his lap as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Want to talk about it? He asked. She shook her head against his shoulder. Can I just stay here for a little while? Of course. He smoothed her hair gently. As long as you need. They sat together in the quiet office, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. Robert felt Lily's breathing gradually slow as she drifted back to sleep, trusting and vulnerable in his arms. In that moment, the path forward seemed suddenly crystalline clear. The next morning he called the board of Blackwell Enterprises and requested an emergency meeting. Hours later, he stood before them in the company's sleek conference room, his resolve firm. I've guided this company through expansion, recession, and technological revolution, he told them. I've delivered consistent growth and innovation. But today I'm asking for something I've never requested before, your patience and understanding while I attend to a personal matter that can't be delegated. The board members exchanged glances. Harrison Wells, the lead director, leaned forward. Robert, we respect your personal situation, but the timing with Klein is precarious. I understand that, Robert acknowledged, which is why I'm proposing that Vincent Porter act as interim CEO for the next 2 weeks, with my guidance as needed. Vincent has been my right hand for 15 years. He knows this deal as well as I do. Murmurs rippled around the table. Vincent, seated at Robert's side, stared at him in shock. This is unexpected, Harrison said carefully. It's necessary, Robert replied. I can either do this job completely or not at all. Right now, my focus needs to be elsewhere. After a tense discussion, the board reluctantly approved the temporary arrangement. As the meeting concluded, Vincent followed Robert into his private office. Sir, I don't understand. Yesterday you assured the Klein board that business continues as usual, and today you're stepping aside. Robert turned to face his assistant. Yesterday I watched a child who has known nothing but broken promises finally begin to trust that someone will put her first. I won't break that trust, Vincent. Not for Klein, not for the board, not for anyone. Vincent's expression hardened. And what about your responsibility to this company? To the thousands of employees who depend on your leadership? They'll have it again soon. But right now there are 2 children who need me more. As Vincent left, clearly displeased, Robert felt a strange lightness. For the first time in his career, he had chosen family over business without reservation or compromise. Whatever happened next, with Klein, with the board, with the custody hearing, he knew he had made the right choice. That afternoon, as he helped Lily prepare for her testimony at the upcoming hearing, his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Mr. Blackwell, this is Judge Harmon's clerk. The judge would like to see you, Ms. Wilson, and the respective attorneys in his chambers tomorrow morning at 9. Has something happened? The judge has received the report from yesterday's supervised visitation and wants to address some concerns before Tuesday's formal hearing. Robert agreed to the meeting, a mixture of hope and apprehension rising within him. That evening, as the children played a board game in the living room, their laughter a balm to his worried mind, he received an email from Vincent. Klein representatives requesting urgent call. Board questioning interim leadership decision. Shareholders expressing concern. Please advise. Robert closed his laptop without responding. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. Tonight, he would be present for the family that was forming, unexpectedly but undeniably right before his eyes. Chapter 6. Truth and Consequences. The following morning, Robert stood in Judge Harmon's chambers, the atmosphere tense as Patricia Wilson glared at him from across the room. Her attorney, Diane Lowell, maintained a professional demeanor, but couldn't quite hide her surprise at being called for this unexpected meeting. Judge Harmon, a man in his 60s with shrewd eyes and a reputation for no-nonsense handling of family court cases, studied the file before him with careful attention. "I've reviewed the report from yesterday's supervised visitation," he finally said, looking up at Patricia. "Ms. Wilson, your behavior was deeply concerning. Threatening a child, particularly one under your guardianship, is something this court takes very seriously." Patricia shifted uncomfortably. "I was upset. Lily has been poisoned against me by him." She jerked her head toward Robert. "The report indicates you were intoxicated," Judge Harmon continued, unmoved by her accusation. The supervisor noted slurred speech, unsteady gait, and smelled alcohol on your breath. "Is this accurate?" Fairs Lowell placed a restraining hand on Patricia's arm before she could respond. "Your Honor, my client was understandably emotional about seeing her niece after being separated from her. As for the other allegations, we dispute the characterization." "The supervisor's report is quite detailed, Counselor," Judge Harmon interrupted. "And it aligns with reports from the CPS home visits, which documented evidence of alcohol abuse and unsafe living conditions." He turned to Robert and his attorney, Emily Chen, a sharp, composed woman who specialized in family law. "Mr. Blackwell, I understand you're seeking to extend the temporary guardianship pending a more thorough investigation of Ms. Wilson's fitness as a guardian?" "Yes, Your Honor," Emily confirmed. "Given yesterday's events and the ongoing CPS investigation, we believe it would be in Lily's best interest to remain in Mr. Blackwell's care for now." Judge Harmon nodded, then surprised everyone by asking, "And what are your long-term intentions regarding Lily Wilson, Mr. Blackwell?" Robert had prepared for many questions, but not this one. He glanced at Emily, who nodded slightly, encouraging him to answer honestly. "Your Honor, when I met Lily, she had just saved my son's life. Since then, I've come to care deeply about her well-being. If the court determines that Patricia Wilson is unfit to be Lily's guardian, I would like to be considered as a permanent guardian or—" He paused. The word he'd been considering privately for days finally finding voice. "As an adoptive parent, that's what Lily wants as well." Patricia made a choked sound of outrage. "You can't just take someone's family." "Ms. Wilson," Judge Harmon said sharply, "you'll have your turn to speak." He turned back to Robert. "Mr. Blackwell, the court appreciates your honesty. However, guardianship and especially adoption are serious matters that require careful consideration of all factors, including the child's wishes, biological family ties, and what truly serves her best interest." "I understand that, Your Honor." Judge Harmon looked thoughtful. "I've decided to speak privately with Lily before tomorrow's hearing. I want to hear directly from her about her experiences and wishes, without the pressure of a formal courtroom setting." Patricia began to protest, but her attorney quieted her with a warning glance. "In the meantime," Judge Harmon continued, "based on the supervisor's report and Ms. Wilson's behavior yesterday, I'm suspending her visitation rights until the hearing. Mr. Blackwell, Lily will remain in your care until then." As they left the chambers, Patricia confronted Robert in the hallway, her attorney unsuccessfully trying to guide her away. "This isn't over, Blackwell," she hissed. "You think your money can buy anything?" "Lily is my blood, mine." "This isn't about money, Ms. Wilson," Robert replied calmly. "It's about Lily's well-being. You don't know anything about her. I've raised her since my sister died. And yet you can't tell me her favorite color, or what books she likes to read, or that she's an incredibly talented artist," Robert countered, maintaining his composure despite his rising anger. Patricia's face flushed with rage. "You've known her for what, 2 weeks? I've had her for 4 years. Had her, not raised her. Not loved her. Had her." Robert's voice was quiet, but intense. Lily deserves better than to be had. Before Patricia could respond, Diane Lowell firmly guided her toward the elevator. "We'll see you in court tomorrow, Mr. Blackwell," she said tersely. Emily waited until they were gone before turning to Robert. That went better than expected with the judge, but confronting Ms. Wilson directly wasn't wise. "I know," Robert conceded. But hearing her talk about Lily like a possession rather than a person, he shook his head. "What do you think about the judge wanting to speak with Lily privately?" "It's a good sign," Emily assured him. "Judge Harmon is known for taking children's perspectives seriously. If Lily can clearly express her feelings about her aunt and about staying with you, it will carry significant weight." When Robert returned home, he found Lily and Parker at the kitchen table with Catherine, making cookies. Flour dusted their cheeks, and for the first time in days, Lily was laughing without restraint. "How was your meeting?" Catherine asked quietly, as the children focused on decorating their creations. "Promising," Robert replied. "The judge wants to speak with Lily privately before tomorrow's hearing." Catherine nodded. "I've been preparing her gently, encouraging her to just tell the truth about how she feels." "Is she nervous?" "Of course, but she's braver than she realizes." Catherine's expression softened as she watched Lily show Parker how to pipe frosting. "She's remarkable, Robert. Despite everything she's been through, she still has such capacity for joy." That evening, as Robert helped Lily prepare for her meeting with the judge, they sat together on her bedroom floor, surrounded by her drawings. "Judge Harmon just wants to understand how you feel about everything," Robert explained. "You can tell him the truth, whatever that is." Lily nodded solemnly. "Will Aunt Patricia be there?" "No, just you and the judge. And there's something important you should know, Lily." Robert chose his words carefully. "Whatever you tell the judge, whatever you want to happen next, I'll support you. If you want to go back to your aunt, or if you want to stay here, or if you want something else entirely, I want what's best for you, even if that isn't what I want." Lily studied his face intently. "What do you want?" Robert took a deep breath. "I want you to stay, if that's what would make you happy. I've grown to care about you very much." "Like Parker?" she asked, her voice small. "Yes," Robert said simply, "like Parker." Lily was quiet for a long moment, looking down at her drawings, colorful scenes of a boy and girl playing in a garden, of family dinners, of a man who was unmistakably Robert reading bedtime stories. "I want to stay too," she finally whispered. "Is that okay?" Robert felt his throat tighten with emotion. "It's more than okay, Lily." The next morning, Robert received a call from Vincent, just as they were preparing to leave for the courthouse. "Sir, the Klein representatives are demanding your presence at the pre-signing meeting this afternoon. They're threatening to walk away from the deal if you're not there personally." Robert sighed. "Vincent, you know I can't leave the hearing. Sir, with all due respect, this is a $10 billion acquisition. The board is in crisis mode. Your personal matter is important, but—" "My personal matter is a child's life, Vincent," Robert interrupted. "The Klein deal will have to wait." There was a long pause. "I understand, sir. I'll do my best to manage things here." As he hung up, Robert noticed Lily watching him, her small face solemn in the new dress Catherine had helped her pick out for court. "Is your work mad at you because of me?" she asked quietly. Robert knelt before her, straightening the collar of her dress. "My work will be fine. Today is about you, nothing else." At the courthouse, they were met by Emily and a child advocate appointed by the court. Parker and Catherine waited in a separate room, while Robert accompanied Lily to Judge Harmon's chambers for her private conversation. "I'll be right outside," he assured her as the bailiff opened the door. Lily nodded, squaring her small shoulders as she walked in alone. The wait was excruciating. Robert paced the hallway, checking his watch, his phone buzzing constantly with messages from Vincent about the deteriorating situation with Klein. After what seemed like an eternity, the door opened and Lily emerged, her expression unreadable. "How did it go?" Robert asked gently. "Okay, I think," she said. He asked a lot of questions. Judge Harmon appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Blackwell, a word." Inside the chambers, the judge's expression was thoughtful. "That is a remarkable young lady," he said without preamble. "Yes, she is," Robert agreed. "She spoke very clearly about her situation with her aunt and about her time with your family. I want you to know that I take children's perspectives seriously, especially when they're as articulate and self-aware as Lily. Judge Harmon leaned forward. She told me something interesting. She said that while her Aunt Patricia talks about loving her, you and your son actually show her what love feels like. That's a profound observation from a 9-year-old. Robert nodded, emotion making it difficult to speak. The hearing will proceed as scheduled, Judge Harmon continued. But I wanted you to know that Lily's voice will be given significant weight in my decision. The formal hearing began at 11 o'clock. The courtroom was small but crowded. Patricia and her attorney, Robert and Emily, representatives from CPS, the child advocate, and a court reporter. Lily waited outside with Catherine and Parker. Patricia testified first, painting a picture of a loving home disrupted by Robert's interference. But under cross-examination by Emily, cracks appeared in her narrative. She couldn't recall Lily's teacher's name, didn't know what grade she was in, and stumbled when asked about Lily's medical history. Ms. Wilson, Emily asked, when was the last time Lily saw a doctor before her recent visit arranged by Mr. Blackwell? Patricia hesitated. I'm not sure. Last year, maybe? Records indicate Lily hasn't had a medical checkup in over 3 years, Emily countered. Since coming into Mr. Blackwell's care, she's been found to be underweight, vitamin deficient, and in need of dental work. How do you explain that? Patricia shifted uncomfortably. Kids get sick all the time. She seemed fine. Next came testimony from Mrs. Granger and other CPS workers who had visited Patricia's apartment. They described unsanitary conditions, evidence of alcohol and prescription drug abuse, and multiple instances when Lily had been left alone for extended periods. When it was Robert's turn, he spoke candidly about meeting Lily, about her care of Parker after his accident, and about the bond that had formed between them. Mr. Blackwell, Judge Harmon asked, you're a busy executive with significant responsibilities. How do you plan to care for Lily if granted guardianship? Your Honor, I've already taken steps to restructure my work life to be more present for both children. I've appointed an interim CEO. I've reduced my travel and I'm working primarily from home. Additionally, Lily and Parker have the support of my ex-wife, Catherine, who has been instrumental in helping Lily adjust. And you understand that guardianship is a long-term commitment, not something to be undertaken lightly or abandoned when it becomes inconvenient. I do, Your Honor, and if the court approves, I would eventually like to pursue adoption, to give Lily the permanent, stable family she deserves. As the testimony concluded, Judge Harmon called a short recess before delivering his ruling. In the hallway, Robert found Lily sitting between Catherine and Parker. The three of them engaged in a quiet game of rock, paper, scissors. How's it going in there? Catherine asked. Hard to say, Robert admitted. The evidence against Patricia is substantial, but she is Lily's blood relative. Blood isn't always thicker than water, Catherine observed, watching as Parker showed Lily a new hand game. Sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we're born into. Robert's phone buzzed again. Vincent, with an urgent update about the Klein situation. He silenced it without reading the message. Whatever was happening at Blackwell Enterprises would have to wait. When court reconvened, Judge Harmon's expression was grave as he addressed the room. In matters of custody and guardianship, this court's primary consideration is always the best interest of the child. I've heard testimony today about Lily Wilson's living conditions with her aunt, about her experiences in Mr. Blackwell's home, and most importantly, I've heard from Lily herself. He turned toward Patricia. Ms. Wilson, while I acknowledge your biological connection to your niece, the evidence clearly indicates that you have failed to provide adequate care, supervision, and stability. Your behavior during the supervised visitation further demonstrates questionable judgment and emotional volatility that raises serious concerns about your fitness as a guardian. Patricia began to protest, but Judge Harmon held up his hand. Mr. Blackwell, he continued, though your relationship with Lily is relatively new, you have demonstrated a genuine commitment to her well-being, making significant life changes to accommodate her needs and providing a stable, nurturing environment. He paused, looking down at his notes one final time. Based on all evidence presented, including the recommendation of Child Protective Services, and crucially Lily's own expressed wishes, I am terminating Patricia Wilson's guardianship and granting temporary legal guardianship to Robert Blackwell for a period of 6 months, after which the arrangement will be reviewed for possible permanence. Relief washed over Robert. 6 months would give them time to adjust, to build their new family dynamic, to make sure this was truly the right path for Lily. Patricia stood abruptly, her face contorted with anger. "This is corruption. He bought you off, just like he buys everything else." "Ms. Wilson, control yourself," Judge Harmon warned. "Outbursts like this only confirm my decision." "He doesn't want her," Patricia shouted as her attorney tried to restrain her. "He just wants to prove he can take her. He'll get bored playing daddy and throw her away like trash." Judge Harmon banged his gavel. "That's enough, Ms. Wilson. One more word and I'll hold you in contempt." As Patricia was escorted from the courtroom, still shouting accusations, Robert turned to Emily. "Is it over?" "For now," she confirmed. "The 6-month guardianship is standard procedure before considering adoption. It gives everyone time to adjust and confirms the arrangement is working." Robert nodded, his mind already racing ahead to telling Lily the news. As they left the courtroom, he found her waiting anxiously, clutching Parker's hand. "What happened?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Robert knelt to her level, his heart full. "The judge said you can stay with us, Lily, for at least 6 months and hopefully forever after that, if that's what you want." Her eyes widened, hope and disbelief warring on her face. "Really? Aunt Patricia won't take me back? Really? You're coming home with us?" Lily's face crumpled, tears of relief streaming down her cheeks as she threw her arms around Robert's neck. Over her shoulder, he saw Parker beaming, and Catherine discreetly wiping away tears of her own. As they prepared to leave, Vincent appeared in the corridor, his expression grave. "Sir, I need to speak with you immediately." "Vincent, now isn't..." "Sir, the Klein deal is collapsing. Marcus is threatening to sell to our competitors. The board has called an emergency meeting. They're questioning your leadership." Robert looked from Vincent to the children, who were chatting excitedly with Catherine about a celebration dinner. "Give me a minute," he told Vincent. He approached his family because that's what they were now, he realized, a family. "I need to handle something for work," he explained. "But I'll meet you at home as soon as I can and we'll celebrate properly." Lily's face fell slightly, but she nodded with understanding beyond her years. "It's okay. We'll wait for you." As he turned to go with Vincent, Parker surprised him by asking, "Dad, is your company going to be okay?" The simple question, asked with such genuine concern, touched Robert deeply. "I think so, buddy. Some things are changing, but change can be good. Like our family changing, right?" Parker nodded, satisfied with the answer, and took Lily's hand. "Come on, Lily. Mom said we can get ice cream while we wait for Dad." Watching them walk away with Catherine, Robert felt a certainty settle over him. Whatever happened next with Blackwell Enterprises, with Klein, with the board, he had made the right choice. The most important merger in his life wasn't measured in billions of dollars, but in the bonds forming between 2 children and the promise of a future together. "Vincent," he said as they walked toward the waiting car, "I need you to understand something. I'm still committed to the company, to its success and growth, but from now on, these 2 children are my priority. If the board or Klein can't accept that, then we need to reevaluate our relationship." Vincent studied him for a long moment. "You really mean that, don't you?" "With absolute certainty." A hint of respect flickered in Vincent's eyes. "Then let's go save your company, sir. Your family is waiting for you to come home." Chapter 7. Full Circle. 6 months passed in a blur of adjustment, discovery, and moments that transformed a house into a home. The spacious penthouse that had once seemed too large for Robert and Parker now resonated with the sounds of 2 children laughing, arguing, playing, and growing together. Lily had enrolled in the same private school as Parker, initially shy and uncertain among her new classmates, but gradually finding her place. Her natural artistic talents flourished under the guidance of an art teacher who recognized her potential, and her previously spotty academic record improved dramatically with proper support and encouragement. "Mr. Blackwell, Lily's progress this semester has been remarkable," her teacher had told Robert during a parent-teacher conference. "She's catching up quickly in areas where she was behind, and she's actually advanced beyond grade level in reading and creative writing." Pride had swelled in Robert's chest, not because Lily was excelling academically, though that was certainly wonderful, but because she was finally thriving in an environment where she felt secure enough to learn and grow. At home, the transformation was even more profound. The quiet, watchful child who had flinched at sudden movements and apologized for taking up space had gradually bloomed into a girl who raced through the penthouse playing elaborate games with Parker, who confidently requested her favorite foods for dinner, who left her artwork displayed proudly on the refrigerator rather than hidden away. For Robert, the months had brought professional challenges alongside personal joy. The Klein deal had ultimately gone through, though on slightly less favorable terms and with considerable strain on Robert's relationship with the board. Vincent, surprisingly, had emerged as an unexpected ally, effectively managing the company during Robert's partial absence and defending his boss's new priorities to skeptical stakeholders. "They'll adjust," Vincent had told him after a particularly tense board meeting. "Results speak louder than attendance, and our quarterly numbers are still outperforming projections." Robert had settled into a new rhythm: 3 days in the office, 2 working from home, and weekends dedicated entirely to the children. It wasn't the relentless schedule he had maintained for decades, but he found that with proper delegation and focus, he could accomplish more in less time than he had ever thought possible. Today marked a significant milestone: 6 months since Judge Harmon had granted Robert temporary guardianship of Lily, and the day of their court review to determine the next steps. As Robert helped Lily select an outfit for the hearing, he found her unusually quiet. "Nervous about today?" he asked gently. Lily nodded. Sorting through the clothes in her closet, no longer a few items in a backpack, but a full wardrobe carefully chosen to reflect her emerging personality. "What if the judge changes his mind?" she asked, her voice small. "What if he sends me back to Aunt Patricia?" "That won't happen," Robert assured her, though he had harbored his own anxieties about today. "Patricia hasn't completed any of the steps the court required for reunification. She hasn't attended therapy or parenting classes, and she missed 2 supervised visits." "But she's still my aunt," Lily persisted. "She's still my family." Robert sat on the edge of her bed, patting the space beside him. When Lily joined him, he chose his words carefully. "Family isn't just about who you're related to by blood, Lily. It's about who loves you, who takes care of you, who makes you feel safe and valued. There are many different kinds of families in the world." Lily considered this. "Like how Parker has you and his mom, even though you're divorced." "Exactly. Catherine and I aren't married anymore, but we're still a family because of Parker, and now because of you too. And if the judge says I can stay, will you adopt me, like you talked about before?" The question, asked with such vulnerable hope, made Robert's heart swell. "If that's what you want, yes. I would be honored to adopt you legally and make you officially part of our family. But Lily, even without that legal paperwork, you're already part of our family in every way that matters." She leaned against his shoulder, a gesture of trust that still humbled him every time. "I want that," she said simply. An hour later, they gathered in the living room, Robert, Lily, Parker, and Catherine, who had insisted on coming for moral support. Parker, now fully recovered from his concussion, was explaining to Lily for the 10th time that she had nothing to worry about. "Dad never loses," he said with the absolute confidence of a child in their parent, "especially not when it's important." "That's not exactly true, buddy," Robert corrected gently. "Everyone loses sometimes. But we've done everything right, and Mrs. Granger's reports have been very positive, so we have good reason to be hopeful." Catherine, who had become a steadfast presence in Lily's life over the past 6 months, helped the girl put on her coat. "Ready, sweetheart?" "Almost," Lily said, running back to her room. She returned moments later with a large envelope. "I made something for the judge, to show him how things are now." In the courthouse, they were met by Emily, whose expression was cautiously optimistic as she briefed them on what to expect. Patricia Wilson did file an objection to the permanent guardianship, she informed them quietly, but it's unlikely to carry much weight given her lack of compliance with the court's requirements. Judge Harmon will review Mrs. Granger's reports, may ask Lily a few questions, and then make his determination. Judge Harmon, looking much the same as he had 6 months earlier, greeted them with a nod as they entered his chambers. Mrs. Granger was already present, as was a stern-faced attorney representing Patricia, though Patricia herself was notably absent. "Where's Miss Wilson?" Judge Harmon asked, directing the question to her lawyer. "My client was unable to attend today, Your Honor," the attorney replied stiffly. "She asked me to represent her interests in her absence." Judge Harmon's expression suggested he found this less than impressive but made no comment. "Very well. Let's proceed with the 6-month review of guardianship for Lily Wilson." Mrs. Granger presented her reports first, detailing her monthly visits to Robert's home, her observations of Lily's adjustment, and her assessment of the care and environment provided. "In my professional opinion," she concluded, "Lily has flourished in Mr. Blackwell's care. She is physically healthy, emotionally stable, and socially integrated in a way she was not 6 months ago. The bond between her and Mr. Blackwell, as well as with his son Parker, is genuine and secure." Patricia's attorney attempted to suggest that the improvement in Lily's well-being could have been achieved with proper support services while remaining with her aunt. But the argument fell flat against Mrs. Granger's detailed reports and Patricia's own absence. When it was Lily's turn to speak, she approached Judge Harmon's desk with surprising composure, clutching her envelope. "Your Honor," she said, her voice clear despite her nervousness, "I made something to show you what my life is like now." She opened the envelope and carefully laid out a series of drawings, not the simple sketches of 6 months ago, but detailed, expressive artwork that revealed both technical skill and deep emotion. The first showed a family dinner, Robert, Parker and Lily around a table, Catherine joining them, all laughing together. The second depicted a scene in the park, Parker teaching Lily to ride a bicycle while Robert ran alongside. Others showed homework sessions, movie nights, a visit to the Natural History Museum with the T-Rex that had so fascinated Parker. The final drawing showed 4 figures holding hands, Robert, Parker, Catherine, and Lily, with the words "My Family" carefully printed below. "This is us," Lily explained. "Not just how we look, but how it feels to be with them. Before I used to draw pictures of what I wished would happen. Now I draw pictures of what actually happens." Judge Harmon studied the artwork with careful attention, then looked up at Lily. "These are quite remarkable. Lily, you're very talented." "Robert got me real art supplies," she said, pride evident in her voice. "And he found an art teacher who helps me learn new techniques. Parker says I'm going to be famous someday, but I think he's just being nice." A smile touched Judge Harmon's lips. Brothers often are. His use of the word brother to describe Parker didn't escape anyone's notice, least of all Lily's, whose eyes widened slightly. "Tell me, Lily, in your own words, how do you feel about making this arrangement permanent? About Mr. Blackwell becoming your legal guardian long-term, or potentially adopting you?" Lily took a deep breath as if gathering courage. "When I was little, before my mom died, she used to tell me that home isn't just a place. It's where you feel safe and loved and like you belong." She glanced back at Robert, who nodded encouragingly. "That's how I feel with Robert and Parker. Like I belong. Like I'm home." There was hardly a dry eye in the chamber when she finished speaking. Even Patricia's attorney looked moved despite herself. Judge Harmon thanked Lily and asked her to return to her seat while he reviewed the final documentation. After what seemed like an eternity but was likely only a few minutes, he looked up. "Having reviewed all reports, testimony and evidence presented today, I find that the temporary guardianship arrangement has been highly successful and clearly serves Lily's best interests. I am therefore terminating Patricia Wilson's remaining legal rights as guardian and granting permanent legal guardianship of Lily Wilson to Robert Blackwell." Relief washed over Robert, but Judge Harmon wasn't finished. "Furthermore, should Mr. Blackwell wish to proceed with adoption, the court will look favorably upon such a petition, given the strong bond that has formed and Lily's clear wishes in this matter." As they left the courthouse, Lily's hand firmly in his, Robert felt a lightness that went beyond the relief of the legal victory. 6 months ago, he had been a different man, successful by external measures, but missing something fundamental in his life. Through the unexpected catalyst of Parker's accident and Lily's brave intervention, he had discovered what truly mattered. "Ice cream to celebrate," Parker suggested as they reached the car, where James waited patiently. "Absolutely," Catherine agreed. "This calls for a proper celebration." "Actually," Robert said, I have something else in mind first, if everyone's agreeable. 20 minutes later, James pulled up in front of a nondescript government building that both children recognized immediately. This is where we met, Lily said, looking up at the Family Services Center. After Parker's accident, Robert nodded. This is where our story began, and I thought it would be fitting if this is where we start the next chapter too. Inside, they were met by Mrs. Granger, who was expecting them, and led to a private office where a stack of documents waited. I've taken the liberty of preparing the initial adoption paperwork, Mrs. Granger explained. If you're ready to proceed, Mr. Blackwell. Robert looked at Lily, whose eyes had grown wide with understanding. This is entirely your decision, Lily. There's no rush. We can wait as long as you want to think about it. I don't need to think about it, Lily said firmly. I already know. As Robert began the process of filling out the adoption paperwork, Parker sidled up to Lily. So this means you'll really be my sister, legally and everything. Is that okay with you? Lily asked, a hint of her old uncertainty surfacing. Parker rolled his eyes in the way only a preteen boy can perfect. Duh, you already are my sister. This just makes it official so other people know it too. Catherine, watching the exchange, moved to stand beside Robert as he signed document after document. You've come a long way, she said softly. From the man who used to reschedule Parker's birthday parties for business meetings. I had good teachers, Robert replied, glancing meaningfully at her, and some wake-up calls I couldn't ignore. 6 weeks later, they gathered again, this time in a courtroom decorated with balloons and streamers, part of a special Adoption Day celebration the county held monthly. Other families surrounded them, all there for the same purpose, an atmosphere of joy permeating the usually somber setting. When their names were called, Robert, Lily, and Parker approached the bench together. Judge Harmon, who had requested to preside over this final step, smiled at them, a genuine warm smile that transformed his usually serious demeanor. Lily, he said, I've been a family court judge for 30 years, and cases like yours remind me why this work matters. Are you ready to officially become Lily Blackwell today? She nodded, unable to speak through her emotion, clutching both Robert's and Parker's hands. The legal procedure was surprisingly brief. A few questions, a few signatures, a formal declaration. And then it was done. In the eyes of the law, Lily was now Lily Blackwell, Robert's daughter, Parker's sister, part of a family bound not by blood but by choice and love. As they left the courthouse, confetti raining down from well-wishers, Lily tugged on Robert's hand. Can we go somewhere before the party? Of course. Where would you like to go? Lexington and 82nd, she said, where I found Parker that day. The request surprised Robert, but he nodded to James, who drove them to the intersection where their lives had changed forever. When they arrived, Lily asked to get out of the car, and they stood together on the sidewalk near the fire hydrant where Parker had fallen. I used to walk by here every day after school, Lily explained, looking around at the busy street. It was on my way home from the bus stop. That day I almost didn't stop. I almost just kept walking when I saw someone fall. But then I thought about what my mom would have said. What would she have said? Robert asked gently. That you should always help someone if you can. That it's what makes us human. Lily looked up at him, her eyes clear and direct. I didn't know it would change everything. I just knew I couldn't leave him there alone. Robert knelt down, now eye level with both children. Sometimes the smallest acts of courage have the biggest consequences. You taught me that, Lily. So did I, Parker interjected, not wanting to be left out. By falling on my head. The unexpected comment broke the solemn moment, and all three burst into laughter there on the sidewalk, drawing curious glances from passing strangers who couldn't possibly understand the significance of that particular spot, that particular fire hydrant, in the lives of this newly formed family. Later that evening, after a celebration that had included Catherine, Vincent, who had surprised everyone by bringing an enormous stuffed dinosaur for Lily, Mrs. Granger, and even Emily, Robert tucked both children into their beds. The penthouse was quiet now, littered with the evidence of their joy, cake plates, gift wrap, the official adoption certificate waiting to be framed. In Lily's room, now fully transformed into a space that reflected her personality, walls adorned with her artwork, bookshelves filled with stories, a proper desk equipped with art supplies, Robert sat on the edge of the bed. "Happy?" he asked simply. Lily nodded, her eyes heavy with exhaustion but bright with contentment. "It feels different, even though nothing really changed. We were already a family." "Yes, we were," Robert agreed, "but sometimes it's nice to make things official." "Like a deal," she said, revealing how much she'd absorbed about his work life. "Like when you and Mr. Klein signed all those papers, even though you'd already agreed on everything." Robert laughed softly. "Something like that, though this is much more important than any business deal." Lily yawned, snuggling deeper under her covers. "Robert?" "Yes?" "Is it okay if I call you Dad now? Parker said I could, but I wanted to ask you first." Robert felt his heart expand in his chest, full to bursting with an emotion too profound for words. "I would like that very much, daughter," she smiled, her eyes drifting closed. "Good night, Dad." "Good night, Lily." He stayed beside her until her breathing deepened into sleep, then checked on Parker, who was already dreaming. One arm flung dramatically across his pillow, in a posture that reminded Robert so much of Catherine that it made him smile. In his home office, Robert stood at the window overlooking the city lights, a glass of celebratory champagne in his hand. His phone buzzed with congratulatory messages from colleagues who had watched his transformation from driven, workaholic CEO to balanced present father, with varying degrees of surprise, skepticism, and ultimately respect. Vincent had been the most surprising convert. "I didn't understand at first," he had admitted at the party. "I thought you were having some sort of midlife crisis. But seeing you with those kids, it's changed you for the better. Made you more human somehow, more approachable." The boards even noticed. "Shareholder confidence is up despite your reduced schedule." Robert smiled at the memory. Vincent would likely never fully understand that the greatest merger of his career hadn't been Klein or any other business